And I think there are so many different ways to celebrate a wedding anniversary. You could do it very privately as a family, but you could also do it the way you've done. This is actually rarer because it's very difficult in today's day and age to want to actually celebrate an occasion and put Krishna in the center. It doesn't happen very often. Most of the time people want to have Krishna and things related to the Lord maybe after an event, and they will want to spend a particular day on their own. This is a testimony to your devotion and to your love for Krishna, and that's very important. It is stated in Bhagavatam and in our Shastras that normally when we celebrate something which is of value to us, and if we put Krishna in the center, then that thing becomes auspicious. And that is the correct understanding of the scriptures. What is not correct sometimes, and we often get caught in it if we are not careful, is that sometimes we look for an auspicious day to have a program. Why is that not correct? It's not correct because in Shastras it is stated that wherever topics of the holy name are chanted, whenever names of the Lord are chanted, anytime that happens, immediately that place, that atmosphere, and that day becomes auspicious. That's a very important consideration, right? If you read the advent of Krishna in the Bhagavad Purana, before Krishna came into this world, Devaki and Vasudeva were imprisoned, if you remember. And Devaki was already imminent with the appearance of Krishna. We don't say birth because that which is born must die. But Krishna is eternal. Therefore he appears and he disappears. So at the point of the appearance of Krishna, it is very nicely stated that actually on the day or the night, because it was midnight when Krishna was going to appear, at that point of time, the constellations, right, were not actually in an auspicious position. But when they came to know that the Supreme Personality of Godhead was about to be coming into this world, then all the constellations lined up and it became the most auspicious Rohini constellation, that which we know today as Krishna Janmashtami. So it was not as if the Supreme Lord picked a day when he thought, oh, the stars are aligned, I will come on this day. It's the opposite. Whatever day that he picks, or whatever day that he decides to descend, that day everything lines up. This is very important. And we don't have to wait for Janmashtami to have an auspicious day to remember the Lord. Every time we speak about Krishna, or we sing, we just chanted the names of the Lord, that day becomes auspicious. It is also stated in the Shastras, and this is a very nice shloka, Yatra idyante katham ristas, Trishnayaha prasammo yataha, nirvaira sarvabhuteshu, nodvega yatra kaschana. So this shloka tells us that wherever topics of the Lord are discussed, which is exactly what we are doing now, wherever names of the Lord are actually chanted, which is what we are doing now, three things will happen to the audience as well as the speaker. The first thing that happens is there is no material hankerings in our hearts when we come together for a spiritual occasion. If supposing this was a material occasion, it was a party, it was a social gathering, then eventually, because of our social interaction, we will either be very happy for a while, or we'll become anxious, or sometimes we even become disturbed. Sometimes we go for social gatherings because we may like the host, but it doesn't mean everybody in the gathering likes each other. And very often we come back with a lot of things to talk about each other, but we never talk about Krishna. But today, Prabhu and Mataji have actually invited us to come together. Yatra idyante katham ristas. When we come together to hear about Krishna Katha, Trishnayaha prasammo yataha. The material hankerings in our hearts, which are normally there because it is the material energy, they become dissipated or they become dispelled and you don't feel it. The second thing that happens to us, nirvaira sarvabhuteshu. This is very important. Whenever topics of the Lord are discussed, there is no envy amongst the audience. No one is particularly looking at anyone thinking how is he dressed, how is she dressed. No one has an opportunity to talk about their material possessions with each other and cause undue anxiety. Why? Because you have no choice. You have to look at me, or you have to look at Krishna, or you have to hear, right? You have come inside here. You can't talk to each other. So you see, in that way, Krishna is so kind. He puts us in an atmosphere where even if envy were to come forward, it is quelled by the power of the association. And the third point that's very important, and that is not vega yatra kaschana. Vega in Sanskrit means to fear. Na udvega means great fear. Na udvega means no fear. So not vega yatra kaschana. Whenever topics of the Lord are discussed, whatever fear, whatever anxiety that we may have in our hearts, and sometimes the anxieties may be irrational, sometimes they may be due, sometimes they could be necessary. But if you chant Krishna's names or you hear about Him, the anxieties, they also dissipate. This is the greatness of chanting. And you'll realize in the next few minutes that we are together, you'll realize that all these three things, you can test yourself. They're not touching you as they normally would, in a given material situation. So therefore, chanting of transcendental vibrations really works. And you all were sitting here, you can tell the difference. If we chanted something material, right, like supposing we took up a Bollywood song and we chanted it for 10-15 minutes, it's a vast difference from what we chanted as in the form of the Mahamantra. So this is the power of spiritual life. Today I wanted to speak about a particular verse which I find very important. And because it's the occasion of a wedding anniversary and you've given us time to come together, an important part in our lives very often is a relationship. And the wedding anniversary is the pinnacle of a relationship between a husband and wife. And even in the material world, we have one very important component for success in a relationship. And that component is actually found in the Bhagavad Gita. In the Bhagavad Gita 4:11, 4th chapter, 11th verse, Krishna says to Arjuna a very important principle. Ye yata mam prapadyante tam stataiva bhajami aham. In these two lines he says that, O Arjuna, to the extent that you surrender to me, to that extent I will reciprocate with you. So this is a very important concept. Sometimes we say that we are all in touch with God. And sometimes we ask the question, why is it that God is giving someone more and giving someone less? Very often the reason why these things are there is because of this principle. If two people reciprocate with each other very well, to the extent of their reciprocation, to that extent the relationship will deepen. Am I right, Prabhu? That's how it is, isn't it? That's how it is, even in the material world. Therefore, the same principle is not coming from the material world. This principle is derived from the spiritual world. And that is the relationship between the soul and the supersoul, between us, the living entities, and God. To the extent that we surrender to God, to the extent that we want and are desirous of having a relationship with Him, and we work on it, just like any marriage requires working to grow, in the same way, a union or a relationship with God requires a requisite amount of effort. We cannot say, sometimes many people say, God is in my heart, I don't have to go to temple, I don't have to do anything, He's always in my heart. Try telling this to someone whom you love in this material world. Oh, you're always in my heart. I love you very much. You don't do anything in the house, you don't pick up anything, you have no responsibilities, but you want everything from that person. That's not a relationship. And yet with God, that's what we often do. He can wait. Let me take care of all my other obligations, and then when I have a bit of time, or when I'm retired, withdrawn my CPF, then I can sit back and I can spend some time with Krishna. Then at that point of time, do you really think the reciprocation will be as it should be for someone who has been doing that year in, year out, day in, day out? Of course it can't be the same. You are all parents, most of you. You may have 2 children or 3 children, right? Maybe as a parent for you, each child, every child in your brood is always going to be equal. They're always your children. Whatever happens, you will discharge responsibilities. But if a child is able to reciprocate with you and hear you and obey you and respect you and revere you and follow your instructions, it is very natural for a parent to reciprocate according to the reciprocation of the child. That is ye yata mam prapadyante tam stataiva bhajamyaham. You see the point? So if a child is not reciprocating, then he is loved or she is loved by the parent. But there is a vast difference between how they are treated and how they will actually behave with each other. So that is why when a devotee is devoted to Krishna, that devotee finds that Krishna reciprocates very lovingly. But when a demon, for example, like Kamsa, who's always remembering Krishna, but never favorably. Before Kamsa was killed, he was always remembering the 8th child of Devaki. Isn't it true? Everywhere he went, he was remembering the 8th child of Devaki. He was very absorbed, but he was never favorable to the instructions of Krishna. If a child is always criticizing, finding fault with the parents, he may be very absorbed, but he's not reciprocating in a loving and devoted way. In that way, he cannot expect his parents to feel the same way for him. That is natural, and we must accept it. So therefore, what is really important is how we reciprocate with Krishna. And the reciprocation with Krishna comes on the platform of our surrender. There's a very simple and beautiful episode in Krishna Katha, which I'll just speak for a few minutes, that illustrates this principle. Very easy to remember. You all know that actually Kamsa wanted to kill Krishna. Right? He was looking for Krishna and Balaram. He thought that he had already killed Krishna as a baby. But when he smashed that 8th child, it turned out to be Mother Durga. And she is the superintendent of the material world. And she told Kamsa, how foolish you are. The 8th child of Devaki is born, and he will vanquish you. So then, if you recall, Kamsa sent so many different kinds of demons. There was Putana, there was Kalya, there was Bhakasura, there was Dhenukasura. All of these demons tried to kill baby Krishna and Balaram and cause disturbance in Vrindavan. But Krishna vanquished each of the demons. And then there came a time when Kamsa thought, let me deal with Krishna myself. So he arranged for the best wrestlers, particularly Chanur and Mustika. He arranged for them to be ready to fight with Krishna and Balaram. And he sent an invitation to Krishna and Balaram in Vrindavan, because Mathura, Kamsa was in Mathura, and Vrindavan was a district of Mathura. So he sent an invitation and said, Krishna and Balaram, Akrura, your uncle, is going to come. He's going to pick you up in a chariot. We invite you to come and spend a few days with us in Mathura. And there to fight and compete in a wrestling match. In those days, it was part of the whole deal. So Krishna understood that finally the time had come for him to meet his uncle, because Kamsa was actually his uncle. And so he decided, let this earth be rid of Kamsa. So Krishna and Balaram had never been to Mathura. And all the residents of Mathura had never seen Krishna. No social media in those days, no newspapers, right? No TV. So they had no idea. They had never seen Krishna, but they had heard about Krishna's wonderful qualities. That's all they heard. So the day came when Akrura brought Krishna and Balaram into Mathura, and he left them at the entrance. And Krishna and Balaram walked into the streets of Mathura. Immediately people started to hear that the beautiful boys, Krishna and Balaram, had come. And all the ladies were in their houses, the men were in the fields, right? And so the ladies and the girls, they heard first that Krishna was coming. And what did they do? Ye yatha mam prapadyante. What was their surrender to Krishna? How did they reciprocate with Krishna? They dropped whatever they were doing and quickly dressed themselves up presentably, and they rushed up to the terrace, and from the terrace they saw Krishna and Balaram. They had never seen them before, so people may think, how could they recognize them? But Bhagavatam tells us a very important thing. For those who have heard about Krishna and who hear about Krishna, Krishna gives you the ability to take darshan of him. This is very important. Shravanam is always first. After Shravanam comes Kirtanam. We started chanting Krishna's names, then we repeated Krishna's names. We heard and we repeated. Those who do Shravanam, Kirtanam, then the result of that is Vishnu Smaranam. Then we can remember Krishna. Then we can take darshan of Krishna. Otherwise, we can look at Krishna with eyes which don't have devotion. And that is just looking at him. But devotees don't look at Krishna. They actually see him with their hearts and they hear him with their ears. And in that way, they actually take darshan of Krishna. The word darshan is very specific. It actually means to take audience of, not to see, to take audience of. So therefore, these ladies and the girls, they tried so hard to see Krishna because all their lives they were hearing about him. And therefore they qualified themselves to see Krishna. And it is stated actually that they were so much in the rush that some of them, put on one earring and failed to put the other. Some put on one bangle and forgot to put another bangle. Some of them put the lower dress at the top and the upper dress at the bottom. They were haphazard, but it didn't matter to them because their material appearance was not important. What was really important was how they felt in their hearts for Krishna. So that was the first group of people who saw Krishna. And because they saw Krishna, they could not come forward to embrace him. The ladies saw Krishna as a little boy and they wanted to embrace him. So what did they do? They simply embraced him in their hearts. And that was enough. Then Krishna walked further inside with Balram and he came across a washerman. Now this washerman was actually the washerman for Kamsa. Kamsa's royal washerman. And he would wash all the clothes, he would dye them beautifully. So Krishna looked at the washerman and saw his clothes and he thought, these are very nice clothes that you have, washerman. Give them to me, because if you give them to me, you will be blessed. Now the washerman thought, this is just a mischievous boy. He had no faith in Krishna. So the washerman, he actually rebuked Krishna. And he said, young boy, don't be so impudent in your behavior. None of this belongs to you. They all belong to Kamsa. But he forgot one thing. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is stated, Aham sarvasya prabhavo, mattaha sarvam pravartate. Everything is emanating from Krishna. Krishna is the source of all material and spiritual worlds. Therefore, nothing belonged to Kamsa, and certainly nothing belonged to the washerman. And that's a very sobering thought for all of us. We may think that many things here belong to us, but factually speaking, if everything really belonged to us, then at the time of our passing, we should take it with us. Because it is your title, it is your deed, you should take it with you. That's law anyway. But it doesn't happen in life. You take nothing with you and you come into this world with nothing. So Krishna told the washerman, this is not acceptable because all that you have belongs to me. And you know what he did? To show the world a very important thing. Krishna just took his hand, just the palm of his hand, and he brought it down on the washerman and immediately beheaded him. Just like a demon is beheaded by Krishna. And Krishna did not need to use a knife. He did not need to use a weapon. Just like he killed all the demons with his strength, with his divine strength, he did the same thing with the washerman. But he thought a very important point. Ye yata mam prapadyante, tam stataiva bhajamyaham. If you react to God in a demonic, in an envious, in a faithless fashion, then the laws of nature, which is birth and death, will be applicable to us. And therefore, whatever happens, death is always certain in this world. But for a devotee, there may be material death. But because a devotee always remembers Krishna, at the end of death, he doesn't come back to this world again. He goes back to Krishna. There's a big difference. So the washerman was taught a very important lesson. And Krishna picked up all the clothes that the washerman left behind and he took it, indicating that at the end of your life, nothing actually you can take. And everything goes back to the Creator. Then Krishna walked a little bit further down into Mathura with Balram and the young cowherd boys. And then he came across a tailor. When the tailor saw Krishna, he was so happy because the tailor was actually a devotee. He said, Krishna, with your permission, even though I'm supposed to tailor clothes for Kamsa, I realize that you are my true Lord. Can I tailor some beautiful clothes for you? And Krishna and Balram said, fine, do it. And you know how express tailoring is, right? So Krishna and Balram got very beautiful suits and they look very resplendent in them. And they blessed the tailor. Krishna blessed the tailor to say that even though you were under Kamsa, you are not fearful of understanding what your true constitutional position is. And therefore, when you die, I offer you liberation, which is very special, that you will come back to the Vaikuntha planets. But in the meantime, while you're alive here, I grant all the benedictions that you want. Sometimes people say that if you pray to Krishna, he may award you spiritual benedictions. But what happens to all your material items? Do they go? If you have been born in Singapore, right, and you're a local, sometimes if you go to the locals' houses and they have pictures or they have deities of Krishna, what happens is, surprisingly, you will see that the flute is not with Krishna. If you take the flute and say, I need to put the flute back, they have this idea that the moment Krishna blows his flute, whatever that you have in the house will go. They have this idea, you see. So we always tell them that actually whatever that you have in your house in the first place doesn't even belong to you. Because if it did, it goes with you. But according to what Krishna wants to give you, that you can retain. If Krishna doesn't want you to retain something, you will not retain something. Have you been in positions where you were very sure you were going to remember something and suddenly remembrance skipped you and you forgot something? Right? It's happened whenever wives ask husbands to go and buy groceries and husbands say, I've got it down, no problems, we never write anything. And somewhere along the line, Krishna gives you remembrance for about 2 hours until you reach the grocery store, and then there is forgetfulness. That's coming from Krishna. Right? Of course, it'd be very useful now for you to use that. But it's true. So therefore, nothing belongs to us. And the tailor understood that. And Krishna blessed the tailor. Then Krishna walked further inside, and there was a florist. And the florist made beautiful flowers for Kamsa. But the moment he saw Krishna, he said, why should I serve a master who is subject to birth and death? I should serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that's what he did. And he made beautiful flowers and offered them to Krishna. And when he did that, Krishna blessed him and said that in this very life, I give you great ability to understand what devotional service is. And he asked, and Krishna asked him, do you want any benediction? And he said, I have no desire for any benediction. The only benediction I ask is that let me stay in this world so that I can serve the living entities and make sure that they also become devotees of you, my Lord. See the mood of a devotee. Devotees don't only want to save themselves. They want to share this beauty and this wonderful spiritual experience with others. Now, Prabhu and Mataji invited all of you. They're devotees. They want to share this spiritual experience that they have experienced. They've been coming for programs for years. So they know the taste of bhakti. And that's why they want to share it with everyone. So this is the mood of the florist. So then Krishna passed all of them. And now he came across a very sorry looking young lady who looked very old because she was hunched back. And she looked she did not look beautiful at all. And her name was Kubja. And she was the hunchback. And she had only one service. She made very wonderful sandalwood pulp. And she would use it to put on Kamsa. And she would cool him down. Sandalwood is very cooling. And so Krishna saw her. And Krishna in transcendental joking style said, oh, most beautiful woman. She was hardly beautiful, but he said, oh, most beautiful woman, where are you going and what do you do? And she said, my dear Krishna, I've heard so much about you, but I always put sandalwood on Kamsa. But today I think I should apply sandalwood on your lotus body. Will you give me a chance to do that, my Lord? And Krishna became very pleased with Kubja's mood of service. And the moment he saw that mood of service, he then did something very interesting. He put one foot on Kubja's foot. He took his palm of the right hand and he put it under her chin. And because Krishna is Krishna, he just straightened her up. And Kubja, the hunchback, who looked very, very unwelcoming and not very good looking at all, became the most beautiful girl in Mathura. We say she became Miss Mathura. She was very beautiful, more beautiful than anyone else. But Shastras tell us something very important. Krishna was not attracted to Kubja's beauty. In the material world, we are always attracted to something physically beautiful. But Krishna is not attracted to something physically beautiful. He was attracted to Kubja's service. Her mood of service is what attracted Krishna. And if we have that mood of service, then we become beautiful in Krishna's eyes. That is real beauty. Not the beauty that will leave us, but the beauty of our service. And that service of Kubja was founded on the platform of devotion. And so Kubja then told Krishna that I cannot imagine I look like this. But will you now be kind enough with Balaram, come to my house so that we can serve you very nicely. And Krishna and Balaram, who did not even enter Kamsa's palace, did not even enter Akrura's house, they decided the first house they will enter in Mathura was the lowly Kubja, who was a hunchback. So Krishna is not interested with wealth. He's not interested with high parentage. He's not interested if you're very educated or you're good looking or you come from a high birth, anything like that. He's only interested in the sincerity of your bhakti. Kunti Mata says that, Janma Aishwarya Shruta Shribir, Edamana Madaha Puman, Naivadhati Abhidhatum Vai, Tvam Akinchana Gochara. She says, Krishna, those who are born of Janma, high parentage, Aishwarya, they have plenty of money, right? Janma Aishwarya Shruta, they are very, very learned. Shribir, They are very good looking also. These are all considered materially very good qualities. If you have that, they say you're very lucky. But I don't want any of these, because when you have this, you become very proud. Eda madaha puman, you become intoxicated by material pride, and you forget that you are actually part and parcel of Krishna. So those who don't have these things, nai vai harhati, they don't have these things, abhidatum vai, they can approach you, Krishna, with more feeling. Kubja did that. And so always remember, Krishna is not interested in your opulence. He has more money than you will ever have. He's not interested in your high parentage, because no one is higher than Krishna. He's not interested in your education, because all your intelligence is coming from him. And he's not interested in your beauty, because in about 10, 15, 20 years from now, all of us will not be looking at the mirrors. That's the truth. And therefore Krishna is only interested in your bhakti. That's it. And therefore Krishna then reciprocated with Kubja. And after that, Krishna thought, I have met everyone. Then he decided to go to an arena where Kamsa had put forward what we call Dhanur Yajna. It was the yajna to have a large bow, very huge bow. It came from Lord Shiva. And anyone who could string it and actually shoot it would be considered a great hero. Krishna just walked up to the bow, picked it up as if someone picks up a garland, strung it as if it was nothing but flowers, and then he began to pull on it. As he pulled on it, Bhagavatam tells us the force of the pulling and the velocity in which it was being pulled was so strong that the bow broke. And the breaking of the bow was such a terrifying noise that it was heard throughout Mathura. But the beauty is, all the devotees in Mathura who were not inimical of Krishna, when they heard the bow, in their hearts they felt so much love for Krishna. When Kamsa heard the breaking of the bow, he became completely petrified. And he thought, this is an imminent bad omen, that something is going to happen to me. And that night Kamsa could not sleep. He had so many inauspicious omens. It's very interesting. He would look at himself in the mirror and he could not see his head. He would walk on the floor and he could not see his footprints. He would look for his shadow and he could not see his shadow. He looked out in the night and he saw a blood moon. He heard the howling of the jackals and the wild dogs. And when he went to sleep, he had nightmares of ghouls and ghosts and goblins, and they were riding on donkeys. Such a strange amalgamation of ill omens. When Kamsa woke up the next morning, he knew in his heart that death was imminent. Therefore, when we realize that we are temporary in nature, sometimes at that point of time, we wake up and we think that now is the time for me to try and become spiritual. Sometimes when we've gone through a really difficult time in life, that's when we visit temples very often, don't we? And after everything is fine, we say, Krishna, I'm going to apply for leave from bhakti and I'll just stay away from you for a while until the next problem comes. That's the problem with people like Kamsa. But the next morning Kamsa thought, I will still survive this because I have Chanura and Mustika and I have the great wild elephant. The elephant has a long name, Kuvalaya Pida, very long name. And this wild elephant was the first to meet Krishna and Balram in the morning. As they walked there, the mahout who was taking care of the elephant, he unleashed it. But Krishna just toyed with the elephant and in no time he destroyed the elephant. And now Krishna walked into the wrestling arena and he was about to wrestle. Now Bhagavatam tells us, and I'll wind down at this point, Bhagavatam tells us the moment he entered the arena, so many audiences were there. Every audience reacted and reciprocated with Krishna differently. They were all seated there, but they all saw Krishna differently. Mustika, Chanura and all the wrestlers, they saw Krishna as strength personified. Because they saw him as a small boy, but they realized that he had hidden strength. All the residents of Mathura, they saw Krishna as the supreme personality of Godhead and the object of their love. The gopis who came, they saw Krishna and they prayed for Krishna to be their husband. All the cowherd men who came, they looked at Krishna proudly and said, Krishna is one of us. He's our kinsman. Then it is stated interestingly in Bhagavata Purana, the unintelligent people, they looked at Krishna and thought that he was an ordinary man or an ordinary boy. So Shastras tell us that very often we think Krishna is just a historical personality. But that is a very unintelligent thing because we don't understand scriptures. And therefore we just deride him as someone who was born and who died. And then they say when Kamsa saw Krishna, he saw Krishna not as the beautiful boy with flute and peacock feathers. He saw Krishna as Yamaraj, death personified. You see? So each and every person who was there, they saw Krishna differently. Then there was Devaki Mata and there was Vasudev, the parents of Krishna. When they saw Krishna as the object of their eternal love, their child. So you see, we are all here and we are all seeing Krishna. But how we are seeing Krishna and how we are reciprocating with Krishna is all very different. And according to how we are seeing him, he is seeing us. How we are seeing him, he is seeing us. How we are going to reciprocate with him, he is going to reciprocate with us. Don't think, very often we tell devotees, for example, I may play the harmonium very well. I may be trained, I may be the best harmonium player in the world. But if I'm not chanting Krishna's names, if I'm not following the principles of Shastras, if I'm not humble about it, if I don't do my devotional service properly, then Krishna is not going to reciprocate with me as a devotee. He will reciprocate with me as a great harmonium player. My pride will grow, but my bhakti will fall. You see the point? Ye yatha mam prapadyante tam stataiva pachamyaham. So this is the point we must take back. How are we going to reciprocate with Krishna? And each one of us is an individual. You have a free choice. Because bhakti doesn't mean someone puts a gun to your head and say that you love me. That's not bhakti. Bhakti means it has to come from your heart. But there is a science to bhakti. Just like there's a science to study something, there's a science to bhakti. The more we hear about Krishna, the more we try to put Krishna in the center, and the more we do things without anything, without always offering something that we have for Krishna before we take it, that mood, we will become Krishna conscious. And eventually what will happen is, you will start offering things to Krishna and use things that will please Krishna. So if Krishna says, offer me leaf, flower, fruit and water, you just offer him that. Krishna never asked, for example, for meat in Bhagavad Gita. So why do we offer him meat? We offer him that which satisfies him. Then he will begin to realize, if I offer something that satisfies him, he will be satisfied if I use it in his service. Then your next step in bhakti starts. You will regulate your life in such a way that you do things that please the Lord and do things and avoid things that displease him. And that is the ultimate relationship between you and God. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Jai Shla Prabhupada ki. And you all know, by the way, what happened to Chanura and Mustika, isn't it? When the wrestling match started, Krishna just toyed with them. Balram just toyed with them. And eventually, they realize that these boys look very ordinary, but they are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And when Kamsa thought everything was over, he could not understand that Krishna had come. And Krishna would jump from the wrestling arena to the throne of Kamsa. And he would catch him by the hair and he would smash him to the ground and he would bring him down. Bhagavatam says, just like a lion catches a prey, in the same way Kamsa would be caught by Krishna. And Krishna would vanquish Kamsa. And by doing so, he liberated Mathura. He liberated Vasudeva and Devaki. And he liberated all those who had an atheistic temperament towards him. This is why Krishna takes appearance in this material world. Thank you very much for hearing this. And I hope you take this back. I hope you'll also realize that our scriptures are not what we call mythology. There is so much of rationale to our scriptures. And mythology means that which has not happened. Our scriptures are known as Puranas. Puran means ancient history. Just because our history is not chronological doesn't mean it is defective, right? It is emphasizing areas which are helpful for us to grow as devotees.